She's a breaking machine. It's the case of you break it, you buy it.
Thank you. James. He says you should never trust tenants because they always break things. They try to move out without fixing them. That's what security deposits are for. Bottom line, the plaintiff left.
And I still am not talking with Christine. Are we going to fix that? I don't know.
We all certainly hope so.
The air in the courtroom was so tense, you could almost feel it pressing against your skin. Every eye was fixed on the woman standing at the witness stand, her hands steady but her voice carrying the weight of decades. Meri Brown, once the quiet backbone of a family that prided itself on unity, now stood alone, facing the man she had trusted for most of her life. Kody Brown, the patriarch who had promised her equality and belonging, sat across the room, his jaw clenched, his eyes refusing to meet hers. Robyn Brown, the wife who had become his confidant and legal partner, sat beside him, her face pale and anxious. And just behind Meri, Janelle Brown watched with a look of fierce support, her presence a silent reminder that Meri was not alone in this fight. For years, Meri's story had been one of patience, of swallowing pain, and waiting for promises to be kept. But today, the silence was broken. Today, the truth was about to be heard, not just by the judge, but by everyone who had ever wondered what really happened behind the closed doors of the Brown family. The stakes were more than just land or money. This was about dignity, about reclaiming a voice that had been ignored for far too long. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, and you're watching my channel, where we bring you the real stories that matter. If you're as shocked as I am by what's unfolding, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about this incredible moment. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of what happens next, because this is the day Meri Brown finally stands up for herself and nothing will ever be the same. Long before the courtroom drama, before the cameras and the headlines, Meri Brown's life was shaped by choices that demanded more from her than most could ever imagine. She was the first to say yes to Kody's vision of a family built on faith and unity, stepping into a world where love was meant to be shared and sacrifice was expected. In those early years, Meri believed in the dream. She believed in Kody. She believed that her willingness to put the family first would be seen, valued, and returned in kind. Meri was the one who set the tone for the household, welcoming new wives, helping to raise children who weren't her own, and smoothing over the rough edges that came with blending so many lives together. She gave up her privacy, her legal standing, and even her own needs, all for the sake of a family that promised spiritual equality. When Kody asked her to legally divorce him so he could marry Robyn and adopt her children, Meri agreed, trusting that her place in the family would remain secure. She told herself that love was about sacrifice, that patience would be rewarded, and that her loyalty would never be forgotten. But as the years passed, the reality was far different. The more Meri gave, the less she seemed to matter. Her voice grew quieter. Her presence faded into the background, and the promises that once felt so real began to sound hollow. She watched as Kody's attention shifted, as her relationship with him became strained and distant, and as Robyn's influence grew stronger. The family structure that was supposed to lift everyone up instead left Meri feeling isolated and invisible. Every time she tried to speak up, to ask for what she needed, she was met with deflection or silence. The message was clear. Keep the peace, don't rock the boat, and maybe things will get better. But the cost of that silence was heavy. It meant swallowing her pain, hiding her disappointment, and pretending that everything was fine, even when her heart was breaking. Meri's sacrifices were real, and so was the loneliness that came with them. Yet through it all, she held on to hope, believing that one day her loyalty and love would finally be recognized. Coyote Pass was more than just a stretch of land in Arizona. For Meri, it was the promise of a new beginning, a place where the family could finally put down roots and build something lasting together. Kody painted a picture of 4 homes, each wife with her own space, but all connected by shared dreams and a sense of belonging. He spoke of porches with mountain views, children running between houses, and a legacy that would outlast them all. The land was supposed to be a symbol of unity, a reward for all the years of sacrifice and compromise, Meri clung to that vision, letting it carry her through some of the hardest moments. When the
And
family moved to
I
Flagstaff,
still am not
she
talking
imagined
with
her own home
Christine.
at Coyote Pass,
Are
a
we going to
place
fix
where she
that?
could finally
I don't
feel
know.
secure and valued. The idea of building something from the ground up, side by side with the other wives, gave her hope that the fractures in the family could be healed. It was a chance to start fresh, to create a future where everyone had a place and a voice. But even as the plans were drawn and the land was walked, small doubts began to creep in. Promises about equal ownership were made, but the details always seemed to shift. Cody's enthusiasm sometimes felt more like a performance than a commitment, and Meri noticed that decisions were often made without her input. Still, she pushed those worries aside, telling herself that trust was the foundation of family. Yet, beneath the surface, the cracks were already forming. The dream of Coyote Pass was powerful, but it was also fragile, and Meri was about to discover just how easily it could be shattered. The truth didn't come crashing down all at once. It crept in slowly, almost quietly, until it was impossible to ignore. It started with a simple question about property taxes. Janelle, always practical and detail-oriented, was sorting through paperwork when she noticed something odd. A late notice had arrived, and as she tried to make sense of it, she decided to check the official records at the county office. What she found there made her heart sink. The deeds for Coyote Pass didn't list her name, and Meri's name was missing too. Only Kody and Robyn appeared as legal owners. Janelle called Meri right away, her voice tight with disbelief. Together, they pored over every document they could find, searching for any sign that this was a mistake. But the evidence was clear. Despite years of promises, despite their financial contributions and emotional investment, they had been left out. The land that was supposed to represent unity and fairness had been quietly taken from them. The shock was overwhelming. For Meri, it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. All those years of trust, all the sacrifices she had made, suddenly seemed meaningless. She remembered every conversation where Kody had reassured her, every time he'd said the land would be split equally, every moment she'd chosen to believe him. Now it was obvious those words had been empty. When Meri and Janelle confronted Kody, the room was thick with tension. Kody tried to explain, insisting that he had advanced most of the money and needed to keep things simple. Robyn sat beside him, her eyes darting away, unable to meet Meri's gaze. The excuses only made the betrayal sting more. Meri's voice shook as she asked why her name had been left off, why she was still paying taxes on land she didn't own, why the promises had been broken. Kody's answers were vague, defensive, and full of justifications that only deepened the hurt. The confrontation left Meri reeling. The trust she had clung to for so long was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. She realized that silence had only protected those who took advantage of her faith. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. The dream of Coyote Pass had turned into a painful reminder of everything she had lost, but it also sparked something new, a determination to fight for what was rightfully hers. The day Meri walked into the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Every seat was filled, and the quiet hum of whispered conversations faded as the judge entered. The stakes were clear to everyone in the room. This wasn't just about a piece of land, it was about years of broken trust, about a woman finally refusing to be invisible, and about a family's secrets coming into the light. Meri sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Janelle was right beside her, a steady presence, offering silent encouragement. For both women, this was a moment they never thought would come. After years of swallowing their pain and doubts, they were finally ready to speak the truth, no matter how hard it was to say out loud. As the proceedings began, Meri's lawyer presented the first pieces of evidence: bank statements, emails, and contracts that showed her financial contributions and the promises made to her. Each document was a piece of her story, proof that she had always been part of the family's plans, even if her name had been erased from the paperwork. When Meri took the stand, her voice was steady but full of emotion. She spoke about the years she spent believing in Kody's promises, the sacrifices she made, and the pain of discovering she had been left out. The courtroom listened in silence, the weight of her words settling over everyone. For Meri, every sentence was a step away from the silence that had defined her life for so long. Supported by Janelle, she was no longer just a background figure. She was fighting for her dignity, her rights, and her place in the story. And as the first testimonies ended, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same again. As the trial moved forward, the courtroom became a stage where years of hidden control and manipulation were finally exposed. Piece by piece, the story that had played out behind closed doors was laid bare for everyone to see. Kody's pattern of control wasn't just about money or property, it was about power, about keeping the people around him dependent and uncertain, always questioning their own worth. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Meri's lawyer presented financial records showing how family income, including money from the television show and shared businesses, had been funneled through accounts that Kody controlled. He decided who got what, when, and how much. Promises of equal ownership were made in front of cameras, but the paperwork told a different story. When questioned, Kody insisted he had only done what was necessary to protect the family's interests. But his words rang hollow. The more he tried to justify his actions, the clearer it became that he had always been the one moving the goalposts, changing the rules to suit himself. Emails and text messages revealed a pattern of gaslighting. When Meri or Janelle asked questions about the land or their finances, Kody would deflect, accuse them of being ungrateful, or suggest they didn't understand the bigger picture. He painted himself as the only one capable of making the tough decisions, while quietly erasing the contributions and voices of the women who had built the family with him. The courtroom saw through the charm and bravado that had once held the family together. What was left was a man desperate to keep control, even as the truth slipped through his fingers. Robyn's role in all of this was more complicated. On the surface, she had always presented herself as the peacemaker, the one who wanted harmony above all else. But the evidence showed she was far more involved than she let on. Emails between Robyn and the family's real estate attorney revealed that she was aware of the deed transfers and even encouraged keeping the process quiet to avoid messiness from the other wives. When confronted with these messages in court, Robyn's composure began to crack. Taking the stand, Robyn tried to explain her actions. She said she trusted Kody to handle the legal details and never meant to hurt anyone. But as the questions grew more pointed, her voice wavered. She admitted she had signed documents without reading them closely, relying on Kody's assurances that everything was fair. The weight of her choices became too much, and in front of the judge in a silent courtroom, Robyn broke down in tears. She apologized to Meri and Janelle, her words choked with regret. But the damage was already done. The trial made it painfully clear how easy it is for women in these structures to be sidelined, their contributions minimized, their voices dismissed. Meri and Janelle's experiences were not just personal tragedies. They were examples of a broader pattern that plays out in families where one person holds all the power. The courtroom became a place where that pattern was finally challenged, where silence was replaced by truth, and where the cost of complicity was laid bare for all to see. For the first time, the women who had been told to wait, to trust, to stay quiet, were finally being heard. When the judge returned to the bench, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The decision was read slowly, each word landing with the weight of years. The court found that Meri and Janelle had been promised equal ownership, that their financial and emotional investments were real, and that Kody and Robyn had acted without fair disclosure. The verdict was clear. The property would be reappraised, and Meri and Janelle would receive their rightful share, either through compensation or a forced sale. The judge's words cut through the tension, leaving no room for doubt. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Kody sat rigid, his face unreadable, the power he once wielded slipping away in front of everyone. Robyn's head dropped, her public image as the peacemaker shattered by the truth that had come out in court. Across the aisle, Meri and Janelle exchanged a look of relief and quiet triumph. They had been doubted, dismissed, and pushed aside, but now their voices had been validated in the most public way possible. This verdict was more than a legal victory. It was a turning point, not just for Meri and Janelle, but for every woman who has ever been told to wait her turn, to keep quiet, or to accept less than she deserves. The judge's decision sent a message that promises matter, that loyalty and sacrifice should not be repaid with betrayal, and that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. As the news spread beyond the courtroom, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted. The silence had been broken, and the story would never be the same again. When the judge returned to the bench, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The decision was read slowly, each word landing with the weight of years. The court found that Meri and Janelle had been promised equal ownership, that their financial and emotional investments were real, and that Kody and Robyn had acted without fair disclosure. The verdict was clear. The property would be reappraised, and Meri and Janelle would receive their rightful share, either through compensation or a forced sale. The judge's words cut through the tension, leaving no room for doubt. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Kody sat rigid, his face unreadable, the power he once wielded slipping away in front of everyone. Robyn's head dropped, her public image as the peacemaker shattered by the truth that had come out in court. Across the aisle, Meri and Janelle exchanged a look of relief and quiet triumph. They had been doubted, dismissed, and pushed aside, but now their voices had been validated in the most public way possible. This verdict was more than a legal victory. It was a turning point, not just for Meri and Janelle, but for every woman who has ever been told to wait her turn, to keep quiet, or to accept less than she deserves. The judge's decision sent a message that promises matter, that loyalty and sacrifice should not be repaid with betrayal, and that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. As the news spread beyond the courtroom, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted. The silence had been broken, and the story would never be the same again. After the verdict, Meri stepped into a life that finally felt like her own. She used her share from the court's decision to buy a small, peaceful home in Utah, a place that belonged to her and her alone. For the first time in decades, she woke up each morning without the weight of someone else's expectations pressing down on her. The walls of her new home weren't just shelter. They were proof that she could start over, that she could build something real for herself no matter how late it seemed. Meri's journey didn't just end with a new address. She began to share her story openly, connecting with women who saw themselves in her struggle. Her message was simple but powerful. You are never too old, too lost, or too broken to reclaim your life. She encouraged others to speak up, to demand fairness, and to believe that their voices mattered. The support she received was overwhelming, with messages pouring in from people who had followed her story for years, cheering her on as she found her footing again. The impact of the verdict rippled through the Brown family and beyond. Kody's authority was shaken, his image as the unchallenged leader forever changed. Robyn withdrew from the spotlight, her role in the family's unraveling now public knowledge. Even the show's fans and viewers felt the shift, with many expressing newfound respect for Meri and Janelle's courage. The story became more than just a family dispute. It became a symbol of hope for anyone who has ever felt trapped or unheard. Meri's new beginning was about more than property or money. It was about finally being seen, about standing up for herself, and about inspiring others to do
And
the same.
I
Her
still
story
am not
proved that
talking
even
with
after
Christine.
years of silence, it's
Are we gonna
possible to
fix
find
that?
your voice and
I don't
change
know.
your future. Stories like Meri's remind us that real strength isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the quiet endurance of someone who keeps hoping, keeps giving, and finally decides enough is enough. Watching Meri stand up in court after years of being overlooked is a powerful lesson for all of us. It shows that no matter how long you've been silenced or how many times you've been told you don't matter, you can still reclaim your story. You can still demand respect and fairness, even when it feels impossible. I hope this story has moved you as much as it's moved me. If you've ever felt invisible or pushed aside, let Meri's journey be a reminder that your voice matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Meri's fight resonated with you the most? Please share your feelings in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories that dig deep into the truth and celebrate real courage, make sure you subscribe and join our community. Thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, no matter where you are in your own journey, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. There is always hope, and there is always a way forward. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next story.